The top 9 ladies who completely mesmerized Harrison Ford. We're talking about that quiet intensity, that signature crooked grin that says 1,000 words without making a sound. For over 50 years, this guy has pretty much written the book on what it means to be a leading man. He's rugged, sure, but there's a vulnerability there. He's powerful, but somehow you feel like you could walk right up and talk to him. From the swagger of Han Solo to the adventurous spirit of Indiana Jones, Ford hasn't just played characters. He's built icons that have hooked entire generations of moviegoers. But look past that legendary grumpy exterior, and there is something seriously intriguing going on. This is a man with deep desires and hidden attractions that have kept the Hollywood rumour mill spinning for decades. Today we are diving deep into the list of women who managed to steal the heart of the man who stole America's heart. And let me tell you, these aren't just your average Hollywood starlets. These ladies bring serious talent and undeniable charisma to the table, revealing some profound truths about the man behind the myths. We're talking about everyone from galactic royalty to legends of the stage, from America's sweethearts to absolute icons of the music world. These 9 women shed just as much light on Harrison as they do on the industry itself. So what is it that pulls one superstar toward another? Is it a shared passion for the craft? Is it that electric chemistry that happens when 2 pros at the top of their game collide? Or is it something totally unexplainable that just sparks when 2 kindred spirits find each other? In this exclusive deep dive, we are counting down the 9 incredible women who made Harrison Ford's pulse race throughout his storied career. From the heavy-duty confirmed romances to the spicy whispered rumours, these tales paint a wild picture of Hollywood's most notoriously private leading man. So you better strap in, because we are exploring the feminine mystique that managed to disarm cinema's most enduring tough guy. And trust me, the woman at the #1 spot is going to reveal a side of Harrison Ford that will completely change how you look at him forever. But first, let's kick things off with the lady who not only won his heart, but has managed to keep a lock on it to this very day. I dug into the archives and chatted with some real insiders to get the scoop on this one. The cards were on the table for this match. Coming in at number 9 is Calista Flockhart, the woman who finally tamed The Bachelor. The whole romance kicked off with a calculated move, a spilled drink at the 2002 Golden Globe Awards. It was a single messy moment that would totally flip the script on both of their lives. One eyewitness said he looked at her like he'd just discovered buried treasure. There was this instant spark of recognition, almost like he had been waiting his whole life for her to show up, even if he didn't know it. Honestly, the timing couldn't have been better. Ford was 60 years old and just coming out of the wreckage of his second divorce. Meanwhile, Flockhart was 38. She was a household name thanks to Ally McBeal, but she was fighting tooth and nail to be seen as more than just that quirky lawyer character. What made this hookup so juicy was just how much it shocked everyone in town, Harrison included. You had the ultra-private action hero and the high-energy TV star. They represented such totally different vibes that practically no one would have bet on them working out. A close friend spilled that Harrison was totally disarmed by her. Callista's no-nonsense attitude just sliced right through all those walls he puts up. She just wasn't having any of his grumpy, silent act. People watching them noticed a huge shift in Ford. His rough edges started smoothing out, and he was actually willing to laugh at himself for once. A director who knows him well explained that she brought out a playful side of him that the public and even his friends rarely got to see. That wasn't the Harrison Ford most of us were used to seeing on the red carpet. That was all Callista's doing. Of course, it wasn't all smooth sailing. They faced some real hurdles, especially when Ford stepped up to adopt Flockhart's son, Liam. But instead of breaking them, it bonded them. They tied the knot in 2010 after 8 solid years of dating. A buddy noted that they are similar in all the ways that actually matter. They are both grind-it-out perfectionists, and they are both way sharper than their public images might let on. Plus, they both have this unshakable integrity when it comes to their work. Flash forward almost 2 decades later, and they are still going strong. In Hollywood years, that is practically a miracle. Out of all the women Harrison has had his eye on, Callista was the one who stuck around. She didn't just capture his heart. She actually understood the man beating inside it. He's always had a complicated reaction to on-screen violence, but our next entry was perfectly comfortable with it. Number 8, Sigourney Weaver. It's like Ripley meets Indiana Jones. Few actors have completely redefined their genres the way Harrison Ford and Sigourney Weaver have. He totally revolutionised the modern action hero, and she completely shattered gender barriers with her role as Ellen Ripley. Industry insiders have always whispered that their parallel rises to fame created a unique magnetic pull built on serious mutual admiration. A development exec revealed that Harrison used to push really hard to get Sigourney cast in his projects. There was this one sci-fi thriller, Deep Horizon, where he specifically demanded her for the role, even though the studio suits were clamouring for younger actresses. Ford's crush wasn't just about Weaver's acting chops, it was about her fierce independence. A producer explained that he loved the fact that she didn't need him. Most leading ladies were written as damsels who needed his character to swoop in and save them. But Sigourney created Ripley a character who stood on her own 2 feet. Harrison found that kind of strength incredibly attractive. People who saw them together noticed a very distinct energy, a silent recognition between 2 titans who had carved their own paths in a business that usually tries to shove people into tiny little boxes. A screenwriter recalled that they had this immediate shorthand with each other. They were both super intelligent and both kind of uneasy with the whole fame game. They would trade these subtle looks across meeting rooms, just a tiny eye roll that nobody else would even catch. Even though that specific project fell apart, their connection kept going through chance run-ins at industry bashes, and it was always marked by a special kind of warmth. What makes this dynamic so fascinating is that it represents an attraction based on something real, not just the usual Hollywood fluff, but on genuine respect between equals in a town that typically treats women like decorative accessories for the male stars. Talk about a missed connection. Harrison Ford's obvious respect for Sigourney Weaver's grit tells you everything you need to know about what he values in a partner. For the die-hard movie buffs out there, the fact that these two never properly hooked up on screen is practically a cinematic crime and remains one of Hollywood's biggest what-ifs. We are talking about 2 absolute icons who completely rewrote the book on what it means to be a hero, and their chemistry would have been explosive, going way beyond the standard Hollywood romance tropes. I mean, seriously, the realisation only hit me after I turned 39, and honestly, the fact that it took me that long to figure it out is a whole issue in itself. Number 7, Diane Keaton. It is a classic tale of the quirky queen meeting the stoic hero. When Harrison Ford and Diane Keaton finally teamed up for Morning Glory, the vibe was instant electric magic. You could not pick 2 more different people. He is the silent, grumpy man of action, and she is the fast-talking comedic genius, but somehow it worked. Sources on set spilled that the chemistry was off the charts right away. You could practically feel the spark in the room. One crew member even claimed they were flirting like a couple of teenagers. Now, keep it clean. Nothing inappropriate went down since they are total pros, but that playful energy was undeniable. We are talking endless, teasing, secret inside jokes and conversations that lasted way longer than they needed to between takes. The real tea here isn't just that they got along. It is how Diane brought out a side of Harrison that nobody ever gets to see. The guy's famous for being a bit of a grouch, right? But with Keaton, he was suddenly all warmth and smiles. Director Roger Michell broke it down, explaining that Diane just has this superpower to disarm people instantly. She is so authentically herself, which is rare in this town, and Harrison really vibed with that level of realness. Michelle admitted he saw Ford laugh more during that shoot than he had in his entire career, which is saying something. Their connection wasn't just fluff. It was built on deep mutual respect and the shared war stories of surviving decades in an industry that loves to chew people up and spit them out. One assistant shared a killer story from rehearsals where Diane was going off script and improvising like a genius. Now, most ego-driven male stars would try to shut that down, but not Harrison. He just stood there watching her with this look of pure admiration and delight. Then he actually started riffing off her energy, and it was like watching two jazz masters jamming. Even though things stayed professional and didn't turn into a full-blown off-screen romance, insiders swear the attraction was 100% real. Even the press caught wind of it during the promotional tour, with journalists pointing out how surprisingly animated Ford was whenever Keaton was in the room. One reporter noted that he literally lit up around her, which is something you almost never see from him. We all know Harrison can be a nightmare in interviews, one-word answers, grumpy looking at his watch, but with Diane, totally different guy. He was engaged, cracking jokes and actually charming. It was like she had the secret password to a version of Harrison Ford that the rest of the world is banned from seeing. The Ford and Keaton dynamic is the perfect example of how opposites attract. Her wild expressiveness balanced out his stoic restraint perfectly. His grounded nature kept her spontaneity in check, and together they created something that was way better than the sum of its parts. Whether it was just a fleeting moment in time or the spark of a crush they had been hiding for years, only they know the truth. But one thing is for sure, something real happened between these two icons, proving that even deep into their legendary careers, you can still find an unexpected spark that takes everyone by surprise. Look, my mother and father, they were not the type to hug me, but deep down, I always knew they loved me. Number 6, Barbra Streisand, the voice that literally commanded his attention. Now, some hookups or almost hookups are hard to explain. On paper, Harrison Ford and Barbra Streisand look like total opposites. He is the no-nonsense action hero who speaks in grunts, and she is the massive musical diva known for wearing her heart on her sleeve. But here is the twist. Ford had been harbouring a serious crush on Streisand for years, and it went way beyond just respecting her work. Get this, after meeting her for the first time, Ford reportedly called her the most commanding woman I have ever met. That is not just a polite compliment. That is game recognising game. He saw a quality in her that he has in spades: absolute authority. A producer spilled the beans that Harrison was genuinely fascinated by her. And we aren't talking about the superficial way most guys chase after actresses. This was something way deeper. He respected that she had total control over her empire, refused to compromise for anyone, and demanded nothing but perfection. A former editor at Vanity Fair even confirmed that in an unpublished interview, Ford described Streisand as intoxicating. Coming from a guy who barely speaks, that is huge praise. Whenever their paths crossed at those stuffy Hollywood parties, people noticed a change. Ford, who usually hides in the corner, would go out of his way to talk to Barbara. And these weren't quick hellos. Their conversations lasted way longer than his usual 30-second social limit. An event planner confirmed the vibe, saying there was definite mutual respect in the air between the two of them. We know Barbara does not suffer fools gladly, and Harrison would rather get a root canal than make small talk. So when they connected, it was real deep conversation. You could see they were both locked in, which is basically a unicorn sighting in those fake, superficial Hollywood settings. This attraction was all about appreciating qualities that go beyond the usual gender norms and expectations. Ford found himself totally drawn to a woman who was unapologetically powerful, loud about her feelings, and completely in charge. She took traits usually seen as masculine and rocked them with a decisively feminine swagger. A director suggested that what Harrison admired most was her fearlessness in the face of everything. She never shrank herself just to make other people feel comfortable. Harrison operates on that exact same level of authenticity, and they clearly recognise that fire in each other. Even though they never actually shared the marquee on a major blockbuster, the mutual admiration between these two legends created a bond that went way deeper than your standard Tinseltown schmoozing. In a town that is completely obsessed with pecking order and status, they looked at each other and saw equal titans, a rare nod of respect between masters of the craft. For anyone studying the complex laws of attraction, the vibe between Ford and Streisand is a total masterclass, proving that true magnetism isn't just about looks or charm. It is about something much harder to define. Sometimes the people who pull us in the most aren't the ones we expect, but the ones who reflect something deep inside us. It is about finding someone who embodies the specific qualities and values we cherish the most, acting like a mirror to our own souls. Roberts, how did you handle all that fame? Well, she said, it is all about the grace of others. Coming in at number 5. Julia Roberts. We are talking about the smile that literally melted the heart of America's toughest hero. By the mid-1990s, she wasn't just famous, she was the undisputed sweetheart of the nation. That megawatt grin of hers didn't just light up rooms, it made her the most bankable female star in the entire history of the business at that time. Meanwhile, Harrison Ford was trying to figure out his next move, navigating the tricky waters of being an aging action icon in a rapidly changing world. According to heavy hitters in the industry, this specific moment in time created the perfect storm for Ford's sudden fascination with Roberts, a professional crush that started to look a lot deeper. Word on the street is that Harrison fought hard to snag Julia as his leading lady for 2 different thrillers in the late 90s, a fact confirmed by a high-ranking studio insider. One script was a gritty political conspiracy flick and the other was an intense psychological mind-bender. Both scripts were rock solid, but Julia, she passed on both of them. Harrison was genuinely bummed out about the rejection. But what made his pursuit of her so fascinating wasn't just that he wanted a co-star, it was his specific reasoning behind it. Sources close to the actor say Ford wasn't just chasing a guaranteed payday or looking to ride her coattails to box office glory. He was specifically drawn to that unique magic Roberts has, balancing total vulnerability with an inner steel, a duality that perfectly mirrored his own on-screen persona. He firmly believed she was the only actress in the game who could actually match his level of charisma. That is allegedly what Ford's team told a major studio head during the negotiations. That wasn't just him being nice or throwing out compliments, it was a serious recognition that Roberts possessed a very rare, intangible quality that few others had. It was the ability to share the frame with Ford's massive presence without getting swallowed up or fading into the background. Harrison was on the hunt for a genuine scene partner, a heavyweight, not just another pretty face to rescue, as one casting director explained. Julia had that perfect mix of being accessible yet incredibly deep. She could hit those heavy emotional beats convincingly while still maintaining that untouchable, glittering movie star aura. Harrison saw a kindred spirit in her. Whenever their paths crossed at award shows or industry parties, the paparazzi would catch them locked in these super animated, intense conversations. Witnesses say the vibe wasn't just polite professional small talk. There was a genuine warmth there that hinted at something significantly more. An event coordinator recalled that they had this instant rapport, like they had known each other for years. Sure, Julia has that effect on everyone, but this was different. It stood out with Harrison because the guy is usually notoriously reserved and stoic. But around her, he lit up, becoming present and engaged in a way you almost never saw from him. While it never turned into a full-blown romance, insiders suggest there was a heavy dose of mutual admiration that blurred the lines between professional respect and personal attraction. One director noted it was a classic case of recognising a fellow traveller, someone who just gets it in a way others don't. Think about it, both came from humble beginnings and both managed to stay surprisingly grounded despite achieving unimaginable levels of global fame. They both treated acting with deadly seriousness, yet somehow kept a sense of humour about how ridiculous the whole celebrity circus really is. The dynamic between Ford and Roberts represents an attraction based on opposite energies, his stoic, restrained masculinity playing perfectly against her expressive, radiant warmth. If they had actually teamed up, they might have created one of the most fascinating on-screen partnerships in history, balancing those opposing forces perfectly. Instead, their connection goes down in the history books as one of Hollywood's most intriguing what-ifs. It was a case of professional worship carrying serious undertones of attraction between two icons whose combined power could have absolutely shattered the box office. Even though I live my life in the spotlight, deep down I just wanted to share my life with someone special. I want someone standing right there beside me when I am having my big moments. Number 4, Jennifer Lopez, when action meets pure ambition. As the 1990s came to a close, Jennifer Lopez was in the middle of a massive evolution, transforming from a dancer to an actress, and finally into a burgeoning global music sensation. Harrison Ford was looking to modernise his image, trying to refresh his action hero credentials, while keeping the core gritty appeal that made him a legend. According to insiders, this clash of generations created the perfect conditions for a totally unexpected attraction. A studio exec confirmed there was serious talk about a thriller project for them around 1998. It was pitched as a high-concept action flick with heavy romantic vibes. Picture Ford protecting Lopez's character after she witnesses a high-stakes political assassination. When they did chemistry tests, the sparks were flying, which actually shocked the executives who worried the age gap might look creepy or awkward. But this pairing was intriguing for reasons that went way beyond just physical looks or simple star power. Ford was the embodiment of old-school Hollywood stardom, mysterious, private and focused almost entirely on the craft itself. Lopez represented the new wave, a multimedia powerhouse who embraced the publicity, built a brand across every platform and actively curated her public image. An assistant director revealed that Harrison was genuinely blown away by her hustle. The man is famous for his professionalism, for showing up prepared and giving 110%. From everything he had heard and seen, Lopez brought that exact same level of intensity and fire to every single project she touched. Whether it was acting, dancing, or music, that kind of relentless commitment earned his deeper respect. The entire project ultimately imploded due to typical Hollywood scheduling nightmares and budget wars, but the damage was already done during pre-production. Ford and Lopez clocked some serious face time, and insiders swear the vibe in the room shifted immediately. One supermarket rag even went as far as claiming the duo swapped a whole lot more than just dialogue script pages. Sure, that is just sensationalist fluff, but reputable sources hint there was actual fire behind the smoke. The chemistry during the table reads reportedly caught even the most jaded veteran producers completely off guard. A casting director who sat in on the sessions confirmed the tension, admitting there was undeniably a magnetic pull between the two stars. It was that X factor you cannot fake. Jennifer came in with this high-octane youthful hustle that seemed to wake Harrison up, while his gritty, grounded nature perfectly balanced her high energy. When whispers of the potential blockbuster hit the press, observers noticed a weird shift in Ford. The guy usually hoards compliments like gold, yet he became surprisingly animated whenever Lopez's talent came up in conversation. During one sit-down, when pressed about the team-up, that trademark crooked smirk of his actually morphed into a legitimate grin, as he did not hold back describing Lopez as an absolute force of nature. Look, nobody is saying they ran off into the sunset together, but the professional crush went way beyond standard co-star politeness. Their brief orbit around each other captures a wild moment where the old guard establishment collided with the evolving future of the industry. A producer noted that real recognises real. Despite coming from totally different worlds, they both saw the hustle in the other. They are both self-made icons who clawed their way to the top through sheer grit and determination. Both bring a frightening level of intensity to the job while managing the insanity of global superstardom. Even though the cameras never rolled on them together, the Ford-Lopez near miss remains one of Hollywood's biggest what-ifs. A cross-generational power pairing that would have undoubtedly set the screen on fire. Absolutely. You have to understand that there is a ton of physical stunt work involved, and she just dives head first into the fray. Then you have number 3, Helen Mirren, the vintage goddess, with some serious edge. Sometimes the best chemistry is not instant. It is a slow burn that finally ignites when the stars align after years of watching from afar. That seems to be the exact scenario with Harrison Ford and Helen Mirren. Their careers orbited each other for decades before finally crashing together in the hit show 1923, allowing a lifetime of simmering respect to finally surface. I always knew she was trouble. Ford reportedly quipped about Mirren coming from Hollywood's most stoic leading man that is basically a love letter dripped in fascination. Sources deep in Ford's camp say his crush on her talent goes all the way back to her heavy-hitting Shakespearean runs in the 80s. As one director put it, Harrison has a profound reverence for actors who have actually mastered the toolkit. and Helen sits right at the peak of that mountain. She is classically trained, hyper-focused, and brings an intellectual weight to every scene. The dynamic between Ford and Mirren is a rare attraction between true contemporaries. It is a unicorn situation in a town that is obsessively fixated on casting aging legends next to starlets young enough to be their granddaughters. Born just 2 years apart, they have walked the same road, transitioning from hot young leads to heavyweight character actors without losing an ounce of their star power. That shared history built a shorthand between them. On the set of 1923, witnesses said that while rookies were shaking in their boots around Ford, Mirren looked him dead in the eye as an equal peer with zero need to impress anyone. The respect was palpable. A crew member leaked, but it was not just stiff professionalism, there was a sparky, playful vibe too. They would dare each other to go harder in scenes, pushing the emotional limits just to see if the other could keep up. It went beyond just punching the clock. There was a genuine electric tether connecting them. Industry vets figure Ford digs Mirren's unapologetic realness, her refusal to bow down to Hollywood vanity or mask the reality of getting older. For a guy who has spent a lifetime fighting off the pressure to stay forever young, Mirren's comfort in her own skin was like a breath of fresh air. Helen is this perfect paradox, a producer observed. She is the picture of regal elegance, but then she turns around and is earthy blunt and possesses a sailor's vocabulary. She does not have time for Tinseltown nonsense, and that no BS attitude is magnetic to a guy like Harrison. The timing of this partnership was everything. Both sitting in their late 70s, they were at a point where they picked gigs because they wanted to, not because they needed the paycheck. That freedom stripped away the ego and competition. A director reflected that watching them was pure cinema magic. Two titans taking a victory lap, just enjoying the craft and each other's company with nothing left to prove. Their magnetism comes from being totally secure in their legacy. While they keep the specific details close to the vest, the Ford-Mirren vibe is a solid reminder that chemistry does not have an expiration date. It actually gets better, evolving into something richer, because it is built on decades of battle scars and respect rather than just hormones. For the fans, seeing them finally team up feels like the ultimate payoff to two legendary careers. When two absolute titans of the industry finally share the screen, bringing a combined century of cinematic mastery to the table, the result is nothing short of electric. The intensity they projected was palpable, delivering chilling lines about betrayal and murder that left audiences wondering where the acting ended and reality began. Number 2 is the legendary Michelle Pfeiffer. The leading lady Harrison Ford simply could not stop trying to cast. Very few on-screen duos have managed to spark the kind of organic chemistry and behind-the-scenes fascination that Harrison Ford and Michelle Pfeiffer generated effortlessly. It all started with their first major collaboration in the year 2000's What Lies Beneath, where Ford reportedly spotted a unique spark in Pfeiffer, a magnetic quality that drove him to actively chase her for multiple projects over the next 10 years. In fact, sources say Harrison made serious moves to get Michelle cast in at least 3 other major films following their success in What Lies Beneath. This tea was spilled by a casting director who worked closely with Ford's own production company at the time. The list of potential projects was diverse, including a high-stakes legal drama, a gritty political thriller, and even a script for a straightforward romantic film. His persistence was honestly out of character. Harrison was known for being hands-off, usually letting the studios handle the casting decisions, but when it came to Pfeiffer, he was surprisingly vocal and involved. What made their connection so captivating to watch was the stark contrast between their acting methods. You had Ford's signature stoic less is more approach crashing perfectly against Pfeiffer's ability to access a raw, expressive, emotional range. That opposition created a friction that was incredibly compelling, generating a tension that translated into undeniable sizzling chemistry whenever the cameras rolled. Naturally, the rumour mill went into overdrive about their vibes on set, with whispers of quiet, intimate dinners after wrapping for the day claims that were backed up by a production assistant from the film. To be clear, there were no reports of anything inappropriate going down. Both actors remained the ultimate professionals, yet everyone could see a profound personal link that seemed to run deeper than your average co-star acquaintance. Even the director, Robert Zemeckis, commented on their instinctive rapport, pointing out that he barely had to direct them during intense scenes, something unheard of, even with veteran talent. This telepathic level of understanding grounded the supernatural thriller, making the on-screen marriage feel lived in and authentic. One crew member recalled that just watching them navigate a scene together was a masterclass in itself. They had developed this unspoken shorthand language that you almost never see between two actors working together for the first time. Michelle would make the tiniest micro adjustment in her delivery, and Harrison would react instantly without missing a beat. They were totally locked into each other's frequency. According to deep Hollywood insiders, the only person who truly knows the depth of their bond is Steven Spielberg. The iconic director and close pal of Ford reportedly saw their dynamic up close during post-production and would drop hints about how perfect they were for each other, suggesting he picked up on an underlying attraction that others might have missed. What made the dynamic between Ford and Pfeiffer so particularly interesting to dissect was exactly where they were standing in their respective careers at that moment. Ford was in the middle of shifting gears from pure action hero to more complex character studies, while Pfeiffer was cementing her legacy as a powerhouse of both stunning beauty and serious dramatic chops. Together, they brought a mature, sophisticated energy to the screen that respected the audience's intelligence, exploring the messy realities of middle-aged attraction rather than trying to chase the fleeting spark of young love. Their connection, whatever it truly was, showed that Ford had found his perfect professional match. A partner whose skills balanced his own, whose dedication to the craft equaled his seriousness, and whose sheer presence pushed him to deliver some of his best work. For those who follow Hollywood history, the Ford-Pfeiffer era remains one of the most intriguing what-ifs of modern cinema. It was a collaboration built on massive mutual respect, yet it always carried the undertones of something a little more profound. A strictly professional partnership that seemed to be fueled by a genuine high-voltage personal connection. Reflecting on her impact, Ford once noted her immense value not just to the Star Wars galaxy, but to all of our lives, admitting simply that he would miss her. Number 1 is Carrie Fisher, the rebel princess who managed to steal the scoundrel's heart for real. Some movie romances are so fiery that the audience can't help but suspect that the heat doesn't die down once the director yells, "Cut." When it comes to Harrison Ford and Carrie Fisher, the fan theories that circulated for decades were finally proven right in Fisher's 2016 memoir, The Princess Diarist. It was a bombshell revelation that rattled the entertainment industry and completely reshaped how we view one of the most iconic couples in film history. Fisher didn't mince words describing the 3-month affair during the filming of the original Star Wars in 1976 as incredibly intense. As she famously put it, it was Han and Leia during the work week and Carrie and Harrison whenever the weekend rolled around. The truth behind their fling was a lot more complicated than the fantasy version fans had cooked up in their heads. At the time, Ford was 33, married and a father of 2, while Fisher was just a 19-year-old teenager, an age gap that would look sketchy today even without the infidelity aspect. However, going by Fisher's own account, the magnetic pull between them was instantaneous and impossible to ignore. She confessed in her book that she found him devastatingly handsome, describing him as stone cold and sexy as hell. For a young actress stepping onto the set of her first massive blockbuster, working next to the already established charisma of Ford created a mix of hero worship and desire she couldn't resist. What makes this story so enduringly fascinating is how it recontextualizes every look they shared on screen. It really forces you to completely rethink everything you assumed about that legendary chemistry between Han Solo and Princess Leia. Those electric exchanges and burning stares weren't just the result of high-tier acting. They were fueled by genuine, real-life passion funneled directly into the camera lens. If you sit down and watch the film in 2026, the signs are glaringly obvious according to film historians who have dissected the original trilogy. There is a jagged, raw edge to the way they vibe on screen that no amount of rehearsal can actually manufacture. Remember that classic moment when Leia snaps, "I'd just as soon kiss a Wookiee," And Han smoothly fires back, "I can arrange that." The sexual tension there is practically suffocating. Sources who were actually on the soundstage, totally oblivious to the scandal at the time, later admitted the clues were all there in how Ford and Fisher behaved when the cameras stopped rolling. Harrison, typically known for being the strong, silent type, reportedly lit up and became way more animated whenever Carrie walked into the room. He was suddenly game for the kind of witty, playful, back-and-forth banter that defined their characters' iconic on-screen dynamic. One original crew member reminisced that there was definitely a shift in Harrison's entire demeanour the second he was in Carrie's orbit. He guarded her fiercely, showing a level of protectiveness that went way beyond just a senior actor looking out for a rookie colleague. And Carrie, she watched him with this specific mix of total adoration and intimate comfort that you rarely see between casual co-workers. But like most summer flings, it crashed back to earth once production wrapped. Ford went home to his wife and kids, and Fisher continued her meteoric rise solo. Still, those intense months left a permanent mark that rippled through the sequels, adding deep unspoken layers to the Han and Leia love story as it evolved. The truly heartbreaking part of the Ford-Fisher saga is how it lived in that grey zone between cinematic fantasy and messy real life. To the rest of the world, Han and Leia were the ultimate relationship goals, the gold standard for romance. It was the classic trope, the rogue smuggler and the royal rebel finding unexpected love while saving the galaxy. But the real-world hookup was chaotic, complicated and destined to fail, yet it packed a serious emotional punch for both of them. Fisher later wrote candidly, admitting she was green but felt a deep trust in him, noting simply that he was kind to her despite the circumstances. In her memoir, she doesn't paint Ford as a villain or a hero. She just lays out the gritty truth of a lopsided fling that came with a built-in expiration date. As for Harrison, the man is legendary for keeping his mouth shut, and he stayed tight-lipped even after Carrie spilled the beans to the public. For him, that illicit romance is a complex footnote in a private life that he has spent decades defending like a fortress. His choice to remain silent after her book dropped shows a lot of class and respect for her right to own her narrative. It also proves he is still dedicated to shielding everyone involved from the tabloid circus, even all these years later. Out of all the rumours surrounding Harrison's love life, the Carrie Fisher chapter is the most concrete thanks to the receipts. We don't have to guess because one half of the couple put it in black and white in a published bestseller. It is the ultimate example of how Hollywood blurs the lines between movie magic and behind-the-scenes desire, creating legends out of secrets. So who are the real women behind the myth? Let's decode what Harrison's dating history actually tells us. If we really dig into the 9 women who reportedly caught the eye of the Indiana Jones star, what is the major takeaway? It goes way beyond just red carpet glamour. His track record reveals a lot about his psychology compatibility and what makes the man tick. First off, you have to appreciate the sheer range of personalities he has been linked to over the years. You have the chaotic energy of a young Carrie Fisher, the regal sophistication of Helen Mirren, and the bubbly expressiveness of Callista Flockhart. Throw in the iron-willed intensity of Sigourney Weaver, and you realise Ford appreciates the full spectrum of female power. That variety mirrors his own complicated nature, proving that deep people aren't satisfied with one-dimensional partners. Secondly, despite how different they seem on paper, there is a common thread running through almost all of them. Every single one of them is wicked smart and holds themselves to a professional standard that rivals Ford's own work ethic. They all handle the spotlight with genuine class, and crucially, they are women who care more about the craft of acting than the fame game. A director who has worked with Ford multiple times noted that Harrison has zero patience for fluff. He has always been drawn to substance. He likes women who have their own agency and power. He is secure enough that he doesn't need to be the only star in the room. It is also super telling to look at exactly when these relationships happened relative to his career timeline. Fisher was there when he exploded into global stardom. Links to icons like Michelle Pfeiffer and Jennifer Lopez lined up with his peak blockbuster action years. When he shifted to serious drama, he was linked to powerhouses like Julia Roberts and Barbra Streisand, eventually settling into a more mature dynamic with peers like Mirren later on. It is like each woman was a mirror reflecting exactly where Harrison was in his own life journey at that specific moment. This hints at a deeper truth about how human attraction actually works for everyone, not just celebrities. Maybe we aren't just looking for pretty faces, but for partners who understand the specific battlefield we are fighting on during different chapters of our lives. For those of us looking back in 2026, Ford's romantic resume sparks a serious wave of nostalgia for an era when movie stars had real mystique. These 9 ladies aren't just names on a list. Much like Harrison Ford, they stand as living monuments to a very specific golden chapter in the history of Tinseltown. We are talking about a time when true star power wasn't about follower counts, but was built on raw talent, electric charisma, and that indescribable X factor that goes way beyond just having a pretty face. As one veteran casting director pointed out, that generation of performers just hit different. They possessed a unique spark and gravity that is becoming harder and harder to find. They rose to fame in a Hollywood that still understood the value of keeping a secret long before the industry got completely flipped upside down by the 24/7 exposure of social media. Back then, the bonds and chemistry between actors had a genuine depth and intensity to them that feels like finding a needle in a haystack in today's fast-paced entertainment landscape. Maybe that is exactly why Ford's reported attractions are so fascinating to us. They are coming from a guy who has literally seen every single dirty side of this business for over 5 decades. He has lived the full spectrum, going from a struggling carpenter fixing doors to a global icon, and evolving from a young heartthrob into the respected elder statesman he is today. So, when a man with that kind of resume points out which women really stood out to him through all those shifting trends, his perspective carries serious weight and demands our attention. When you get down to the bottom of it, Harrison Ford's list tells us just as much about his own psychology as it does about these incredible women he admired. It pulls back the curtain to reveal a man of serious substance, someone who prioritises grit, genuine authenticity, and undeniable talent over superficial glitz. And let's be honest, those are the exact same rugged qualities that Ford himself has brought to the table every single day throughout his legendary run in Hollywood.